was in junior high school, I learned a disturbing fact about myself. I have ugly feet. I'd never really given my feet much thought, but one summer afternoon while hanging out on a sailboat with my friend and her two little sisters, the littlest sister pointed at my bare feet and said, "Your toes are crooked." We all stared at my feet and at their feet for comparison. Now, the three sisters had the feet of foot models, plump and pretty toes with no sign of crookedness. In shocking contrast, my feet were long and bony, and yes, my toes were crooked. From that moment on, I could not wear sandals without feeling shame. No one must ever see my ugly, crooked toes. While some people select shoes for cuteness and others for comfort, I learned to choose shoes for concealment. If I couldn't admire my feet, I would hide them. I still don't admire my feet, but I have come to respect them. They are an essential part of my body, and though they will never win me a spot in a sandal commercial, how blessed are these feet that carry me through life. Every step of the way on trails and dance floors and beaches and mountains, my feet have been there for me, and I'm grateful for them. This idea of respecting each body part for the value it brings to the body as a whole is deeply biblical, a cornerstone of early Christian teaching found in the first century pastoral letter of Paul to the church in Corinth. Theirs was a faith community experiencing great divisions and internal conflict. Paul wanted the members to become more respectful of each other so they could function better. So he reminded them that they all brought different spiritual gifts to the community and all gifts were equally important. He used the metaphor of the human body to help people understand how they must work together, saying, "For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in the one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and we were all made to drink of one Spirit. Indeed, the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot would say, 'Because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body,' that would not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear would say, 'Because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body,' that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole body were hearing, where would the sense of smell be? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as God chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many members, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, 'I have no need of you,' nor again the head to the feet, 'I have no need of you.' On the contrary, the members of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable, and those members of the body that we think less honorable, we clothe with greater honor, and our less respectable members are treated with greater respect, whereas our more respectable members do not need this, but God has so arranged the body, giving the greater honor to the inferior member, that there may be no dissension within the body, but the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together with it. If one member is honored, all rejoice together with it." That was from 1 Corinthians 12, verses 12 through 26. According to this teaching, the various parts of the body of Christ must be treated with respect, even if they appear less respectable. And Pastor Paul also elaborates on what this respectful treatment looks like. Remember, he said the members should have the same care for one another. The trouble is, it's hard for us to care about everyone equally when we don't all get each other. It's easier to care for and respect those whom we understand, isn't it? Is it even possible to have the same level of care and respect for those who think and act very differently from us? Well, it turns out that what respect really means at its core does not depend upon agreement or shared values. The linguistic root of the word respect is the Latin word respectus, which means the act of looking at someone often, to consider, to observe. We are called to respect each other by regarding each other, considering each other, by noticing each other. What does noticing each other have to do with respect? Well, let's flip the script and consider the opposite. If you have ever experienced being ignored by someone who refuses to look at you or who won't notice your calls, your letters, your texts, that well may be the ultimate level of disrespect. When someone refuses to even acknowledge the existence of another, right? But to look at someone, to consider them, to observe who they are, not only are we honoring that person with our regard, but we're allowing ourselves to understand them, at least to try. I attended a training once with a couple dozen colleagues, and one of our exercises on the very first morning together was to look at someone else and say, "I see you." At first it felt strange, even a little creepy, but as we practiced saying, "I see you," in a non-creepy way, something changed. Tears even welled up. To be seen with no sense of judgment or expectation is a rare gift. Even the act of looking into someone's eyes felt sacred. We weren't making small talk or thinking about what would happen next. We were just seeing each other and acknowledging a human connection. Later that morning, we broke into small groups where each person was given a half hour to share our spiritual biography. It was only possible to become this vulnerable with each other because we had already practiced seeing each other, which set the tone for respect. We could listen deeply to everyone's story, withholding judgment. And after hearing each story, it felt like the most natural thing in the world to simply say, "I see you." Whatever you carry, even stories of failure or shame, I will not look away. Respect begins by seeing. Does this mean that we will agree? No. We may even find someone's opinions, words, or actions distasteful. But in paying attention, we might at least begin to understand as we learn to see beyond our first impressions of someone. I just heard a great story about this on the Moth Radio Hour. A storyteller, Zakia Minafi, recounted a trip she took to Spain in her early 20s. As it was her second overseas trip, she was determined not to be that typical American tourist. You know the stereotype, the socks with sandals, the cargo shorts, big hat, sunglasses, loud voices. She felt contempt for this kind of tourist, and she did everything she could to avoid them. However, while visiting the magnificent Alhambra Palace, she got stuck behind a group of classic American tourists. She found herself exceedingly annoyed by one man in particular who was wearing the biggest sunglasses she had ever seen in her life and exclaiming at absolutely everything, "Wow, ooh, ah." His complete lack of self-awareness was not only irritating, but ruining the experience for Zakia, who wished this man would shut up. However, another person on the tour had a better sense of humor about it and commented to that loud man's companion, "He's really enjoying this, isn't he?" "Oh, yes," the companion answered. "You see, he's just had corrective eye surgery, and all of this is brand new for him." Suddenly, it all made sense. The big glasses, the audible expressions of wonder. Ah, and what had once been irritating suddenly became inspiring as Zakia found herself looking with fresh eyes at the marvels around her. It was all the more wonderful imagining how it must look to someone who had just been given the gift of sight. Wow! Seeing through the lens of that man's story, she gained a new respect for everything, including him. Respect is cultivated by seeing and by seeing carefully. Mindfulness expert Anu Gupta, author of Breaking Bias, talks about our tendency to see without really noticing, meaning we glance at someone and see the stereotype we've learned to expect. "Oh, look at that loud, obnoxious tourist with the huge sunglasses. He doesn't care, he's ruining the tour for everyone else." But when we learn to look with mindfulness, we become aware of our own bias. "Oh, this is a stereotype I have learned to associate with people who look or act this way." This awareness opens the door for us to unlearn our bias. We do this by replacing the negative stereotype with a contradictory example. So in the case of the annoyingly loud tourist, we might think about someone we actually know who happens to be a bit loud, but maybe in an endearing way. "Oh, he kind of reminds me of Uncle Bob." This helps us to see the person beyond our first impression, and then we can get to the best part, curiosity. "I wonder why he is oohing and awing so loudly. Maybe I'll start a conversation to find out." The simple comment, "He really seems to be enjoying this, doesn't he?" was the catalyst for the great discovery about that man's eye surgery. And just like that, we disconnect the person from the stereotype and learn to see him as an individual for whom we can have empathy, compassion, and respect. It seems that the root cause of disrespect is our inability to really see each other and to recognize that we all carry with us stories and experiences that shape us in different ways, and thank God for that. If we all had the exact same thoughts, we would never push each other to think better thoughts. I could suggest the most ineffective solution to a problem, and if you simply nod in agreement, we'll go with it. We'll be getting along just fine, but our problem won't be solved. But when you and I can sit down, really look at each other, and discuss matters with true respect, we may just come up with solutions that are better than any we would have dreamed of on our own, even through disagreement. Now, as the church, we must practice this and model it, because we are the body of Christ, and the world needs us. Jesus' work was not finished in the 3-year span of his ministry. His mission was handed to his followers who would, over successive generations, continue to be his body. So we who identify as Christians, we're the current expression of Jesus' presence in the world. We can only live into our identity when we value the contributions of all parts of the body by seeing each other and respecting each person as a beloved child of God. We start right here in our faith community, and we carry that practice out the door with us, recognizing that respect is not limited to the confines of any building or any denomination or even the Christian faith. Everyone has a contribution to the world in which we live, and we'll only discover it when we look at each other with kindness and curiosity, with respect. My story, when enriched by your story, can become a more beautiful our story when we learn to really see each other. Just don't look at my feet.